To be a member of Antifa, all you have to be is anti-fascistic. Anti-fascist. Well, some of these things are good. I mean, I don't like the Nazis. I don't like racists. I do want a safe space, but I think we disagree on how to get there. And it's certainly not by smashing the system or by any means. There is actually a brilliant system to do it. It is the American system. Too many times we have been confused with the American system, and we confuse it with what happened over in Europe. But let me show you what happened to America and how we're set up. It's different than the argument that you hear on TV all the time. The left and right, if you will, are actually anarchy and total control. That is the American system of left and right. This is the way we were set up. This isn't the way that Europe is set up. Europe is set up left and right this way. We have anarchy on one side. No government at all. What does that usually involve? The reason why people who say smash the system are so dangerous is because it always ends in mob rule. It always ends in you cowering at night at your home, worried about what gang is going to rove and come and try to take your stuff. So you need enough government to be able to keep the mob at bay, to make sure that there isn't a strong man somewhere. But that's all the government should do, protect your rights. That's why we first had the Articles of Confederation. But it was too close to anarchy. It wasn't strong enough to hold everything together. So we, in 1791 and 1789, developed the Constitution, and in 91 we had the Bill of Rights. This was far enough away out of the reach of the anarchists and anarchy, enough to guarantee that you had a right to life, to liberty, and to property, to pursue your happiness. But that's all the government was really for, to protect those rights. I know a lot of people might disagree with me, but we really stopped being America, I believe, with Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson came in and he wanted to centralize the bank, and he also saw a lot of territory that he wanted. Personally, he went into the White House as a man who was broke and left the White House one of the richest men in America. Why? Because he decided to take the land from the Indians. He's the one who came up with manifest destiny. Manifest destiny is a perversion of what we really are as a nation. We were, as a nation under divine providence, which meant that as long as we aligned our will with God's will, as long as we did the things that were good and pleasing, and as Ben Franklin said, the best way to serve God is to serve your fellow man. So as long as we were serving each other and we were being decent human beings to each other and we were protecting people's right to life, liberty, and property, we would be okay and God would open up doors. Andrew Jackson flipped all of that and said, we were here for a reason, and that reason is to expand. Manifest destiny. God is on our side, as opposed to we have to make sure we're on God's side. That's what happened. And in this period, when you would have an argument, you could speak about it, man. You could argue with your neighbors back and forth, but there wasn't a government that was strong enough to be able to affect you or hurt you. Until Jackson, if you were a Native American, you didn't have any rights. You didn't have any rights at all. They could come in and take anything that you wanted. This was against the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. They got away with it because of differences. We didn't understand the Native American, and the Native American didn't understand us. We looked at each other and each other's cultures and said, mine's superior than yours. And so we decided to take it. That's what people did with the slave trade all over the world. Let's make sure we understand that that's not a white thing. Remember, the Egyptians owned slaves long before Americans did. And it was the English that brought the slave trade over to America in the first place. And the actual first American slave was one in court. He was just an indentured servant, somebody who could work for a while and work his way out of servitude and become a free man again. That's how it started. Until a African American, a black man, who owned another black man, decided, no, he's not an indentured servant, he's my slave. He unfortunately won that in a court of law here in America long before we were founded. That is the truth on slavery. Slavery and racism is not a white problem. It's not a black problem. It's a human problem. The same with greed and the need for power, all of the vices that people have. It's why our founders said, don't look for their better angels. There are no better angels. There's just really bad people that when you start to tempt them with stuff and power, they always go wrong. That's why the government in 1791, the Bill of Rights, tells the government, you are shackled. You cannot do these things to people, because our founders knew, don't look for better angels. Everyone you give power will be corrupted. So don't restrain the people. Restrain the people with power. As we go on, Lincoln moved farther down, away from this sweet spot here of self-reliance and self-control and self-governance. Lincoln moved it farther, Reconstruction, then Theodore Roosevelt kind of crossed the Rubicon. And if this was a fulcrum, this would be the point, the tipping point, where we start to slide now into total control. Theodore Roosevelt was the guy who gave us the FDA. And every time you can say, well, it was for a good reason. Do you want bad meat? I don't. Do you want somebody to have heroin that has been tainted? No, I'd rather have my heroin pure and checked by the government. That's pretty much what Theodore Roosevelt was arguing. And this began a slide, the progressive era, into Woodrow Wilson, who took a large step. He began to really institutionalize things, and we moved from speak to shout, and at times with him, shove, where if you spoke German while we were fighting in World War I, just speaking German, he could throw you in jail, and he did. FDR moved it even further to, if you are a Japanese American born in America, it doesn't matter. Your citizenship was automatically revoked. Why? Because you look different, and we were afraid of you. I remember the shame of my grandfather when he told me the story of the neighbors that he lost that were Japanese Americans in World War II. You keep following this down, and LBJ comes in, and then Barack Obama, completing truly the Theodore Roosevelt idea of healthcare and government at all walks of life. Did we elect somebody who brought us back this way? Further away from executive order, or are we still being ruled by decree? Has our president taken and moved us closer to the balance of power or not? You'll need to decide which direction on this scale are we headed. Because remember, it's anarchy, so we don't want to be too far with anarchy. We want to be just out of the reach of anarchy, and we certainly don't want total control. Here's why this matters. I want you to understand that the real left and right, if you will, left is about socialism, right? Communism, socialism. The right, I'm stereotyping, is about God. About God and all kinds of traditional lifestyles. Well, if you really want to look at the left and right globally, if those are your caricatures, Then you have the socialists, the National Socialist Party, the Nazis, and the communists. Now, these two fight all the time, but they have a red flag for a reason. Hitler made this flag with the Nazis in a sea of red to tell his Russian and his communist brothers, we believe in the same thing. It's just that we're not internationalists, we're national socialists. You're an international socialist. We don't believe in the superiority of Russia. We believe in the superiority of Germany. That's why nationalism is scary. Populism is frightening because somebody can come when there's trouble, somebody can come and be very popular and convince people, vote for us, I'll take care of it. The I'll take care of it philosophy works, and it's usually how you get total government. Somewhere along the line, there's a problem. Somebody has been screwed, and somebody else steps up to the plate and says, I'm going to solve that for you. We saw that in Iran in the 1979 Ayatollah Iranian Spring. And you see it with ISIS. ISIS would be the global right. Same with Iran. These are mullahs. These are religious people. I want you to remember, these aren't actually socialists. Any socialist that I have ever met who's a regular run-of-the-mill, yeah, I believe in big health care, they care about people. But remember, stop looking for the better angels. Once you give them power, all of those ideals fly out the window. And if you don't believe me, read the Black Book of Communism. It is a book full of every time communism and socialism has been tried and the number of deaths that it leads to. It's a flawed economic system that is continually tried. But remember, speak, shout, shove, and when you get close to this line, it becomes shoot. This is why we're having so much trouble right now, because we don't recognize the fact that we are moving in this direction. And so what's happening? If you take American left and right, this would be the left, this would be the right, and you take that left and right that you think you're dealing with, and you flip it this way, and you make it what it really is in America, up and down, you see one thing. The left will say, there is no God, and don't you bring your God around here. The right says, there is a God, and you keep your atheist, heathen ways out of my space. That argument happened here with Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin was down here, and Thomas Paine was up here. Our founders, most of them, deeply believed in God, and they were deeply offended by Thomas Paine, but they disagreed with him and respected his right to say what he wanted to say. Now, because we've shifted this line all the way down here, where government controls almost everything, now God must be banned or God must be protected in the institutions. Gay marriage must be the rule of the land, or traditional marriage. Back here, you decide. Here, everyone must toe the line. This is the tension that you're feeling now. Faux news, fake news. The bakers have a right, or don't have a right. They have to make a cake for a gay wedding. No, they have freedom of religion. You're feeling the tension that we're feeling right now, that your country, you're losing your country, it's slipping out of your hands, and you're so panicked on both sides because you can't let the other side win because we have moved our government too close to total government. We must move it back this direction. So I can live next door to somebody who believes all these things, and I'm not going to force them to believe what I believe. And they can live next to me, and neither of us will force each other. Antifa are fascists. It's a lie. They're the same. Left or right. If it's this, neither. If it's the American choice, yes, and the American choice requires you to be educated, to know what the system is and how it works and how uniquely different it is here in America. And that will set you free.